Join. All right.
Let's do it.
All right. Got people joining.
Hi, everyone. Can you see and hear me okay? Yes, great. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, give us a little bit of time. We're just waiting to see if other people pop on. But as you guys know, I'm Christian Montesinos. I'm the director of IPS, and I'm here joined by Jamie, um, who is our international scholar and advisor. And we wanted to sort of start this series of live sessions, webinars to give out the information in real time, have the ability to have all of you ask questions. We have some questions that we received via email. We have some questions that we've generated just based off of common questions that have been asked about this new policy change covering duration of status. And so the first thing I want to just cover as we're getting a lot of people that keep coming in, and so that I don't have to repeat the same stuff over again, I want to talk a little bit about what actually duration of status is, because I think that's kind of the most common one. Some people know that they exist, some people have seen it on their passports, and some people just have no understanding of it, even though they are covered under that. But duration of status has been a policy that's existed for F and J students since the early 90s, quite honestly. This has been the policy that's existed that immigration has taken, that whenever somebody comes into the United States in one of these statuses, they will stamp their passport with a D and an S, and that means duration of status. And that means that so long as you maintain your status while you're in the United States, you can stay here for as long as it takes for you to complete that objective. And so that objective for most of you is going to be however long you need to complete your degree plus OPT, STEM OPT, etc., right? So, this change that has come about in the last few weeks, where they are eliminating duration of status, is now going to replace it with an what's called an AUD, and that is an admit until date, which is an expiration date, essentially. That expiration date does not mean that the minute that it hits, you are out of status. There are a lot of things that we're sort of navigating with this new guidance and what it's going to mean for each of you. So I do ask for a lot of patience, because Jamie and I, Farida, who's our student worker, David, who's in our office as well, and Michelle, we're all navigating this in real time with all of you at the same time. And so we do not have a ton of information. We do not have the answer to every single scenario. And you can see that every single student is going to look differently based off of their program end date. Had they been duration of status before? Had they not? How much time do they have left? What type of degree they're seeking? What part of the process they're at? And so we ask you for patience, and we are hoping that in these live sessions, we can get the information out, not just through an email, and be able to answer some of your questions in real time. Now, I'm going to be very honest. Some of those questions we do not have the answers for. Okay. So you may ask us a question and you're frustrated about it, and I may say, I don't know right now. And that is because we will know more as things happen. Whenever things come out in the larger umbrella of the law, it is going to take some time for that to trickle down to affect the everyday person. So it may have be something that is already implemented in the congressional level, but it may take a while to hit the airport in Chicago, and the officers at the airport in Chicago. And so there may be some inconsistencies in what we are talking about for this. And so with that, I think I'm going to stop chattering, or else I'll go over time. And Jamie knows that I'm a chatterbox. And so um, if we have any questions, put them in the chat. We have Jamie and Farida monitoring, and yeah, so we are open to your questions.
Yeah, and we did get some ahead of time as well. We did send out an email. So, Farida, I'm not sure if we want to start going through the ones we've already received. And then I don't know if any of the participants saw. This is our first time doing it as like a webinar Zoom. So we're also learning this as we go. But if you do have any questions, just send them in the chat to the hosts and panelists, and then we can get through as many as we can. So. And we will be recording this as well. So we'll probably send it out to the IPS students list, as well as posting it on our website as well. So if you want to go over it again, or if you know of some friends that haven't been able to attend, you can always pass that along to them. I don't know if...
I do see, oh, I'm sorry, I do see, while Farida's getting the questions, I don't want to get fall behind in the chat. So Eric says, can you talk about change of programs in school? So this is something that these are one of the things that we have an idea of based off of the guidance, but we don't have a ton of finer details about it. And what we have is that that's going to depend on if you're an undergrad or a graduate student. I imagine that everybody that's tuned in here is a graduate student. So if you're not, please put that in there, and then I can talk about the undergrad section. But for graduate students, the guidance is that you will not be able to change your program. You will not be able to change your major, and you will not be able to transfer to another university for the duration of your program. Now, I know that is really overwhelming news, quite honestly. And so I ask you to sort of just sit with that for a second until we get more guidance on that, because I do know that for some of you that is very difficult to digest. Um, so we're hoping that we get a little bit more clarity into what that is going to look like. Now, that is per program. And so that's some of the guidance that I'm waiting to hear is if you finish your master's degree, you submit an extension to jump into a PhD, are you able to do it in another institution? My gut feeling is that yes, you'll be able to do that. We are working through change of majors. If it's within the same department, is that going to be affected? I don't believe so. And so we're hoping that we are able to change your majors while you are here. Change of program is going to be a little bit more difficult just because they've been very, very blatantly guiding that you will not be able to do that. And so that is the information that we have currently. Um, I'm on STEM OPT, which expires in June of 2027. If I travel internationally post September 15th, what should I expect on my latest I-94? So this is a good question that I just fielded in the office, and I know a lot of you have travel questions. So this is going to be sort of the nitty-gritty on everybody that has travel questions, is that at first, when I heard about the possibility of this duration of status rule coming down, I kind of knew about it for maybe about 6 months that it may be coming down. I'm not withholding anything from you. I didn't know the guidance. I just knew that there was something in the works about it, but I did not know the inner details about it. When we finally did get the guidance, I was under the belief that current students would be grandfathered in, so they wouldn't be affected by the guidance, but that is not true. The truth of the matter is that as of September 15th, 2026, which is the date of the implementation of the duration of status rule, every single person will be subject to this new rule. So what that means is that if you travel internationally after September 15th, 2026, or if you return from international travel after September 15th, 2026, your I-94 will have a AUD, and that is that admit until date. So they will no longer honor your duration of status. You will no longer be stamped with a duration of status. There will be no duration of status that is attached to you. You will have an expiration date that most likely will be tied to your program end date. And so that is what we are expecting to happen after you travel. Now, this is what I mean by it's going to take a while to trickle down to the airport officer. And so I don't know if you came back on September 16th, 2026, if they would stamp it correctly or what expiration date they'd give you. And that is something that we need to sort of trial and error to get an idea of what this is going to look like. So I do ask you guys for patience. Come and talk to me, come and see me, send me an email. We can set up a Zoom conversation if you have travel plans. I never want to restrict you from travel unless there is a travel ban in place for your home country. I know how important traveling is. To go see your family, to celebrate the holidays, for your mental health, all of those sorts of things. So I never want to preclude you from traveling if you have that ability to do so. I don't think that for the most part we're worried about you coming back into the United States, but we need to be conscious of the fact that your expiration date is gonna be there. Okay. And so so that's something to look out for.
Christian, I think
Yep.
Farida's busy with a student, so I
Okay.
will
Yeah,
read
yeah, yeah.
out some of these ones that we got via
Great.
email as well.
Perfect.
So someone was wondering about if you could cover how the changes will affect PhD students who are in the middle of their studies. So in particular, this person's question is, my I-20 end date is in summer of 2028, but that was issued for 5 years. Summer of 2027 will be 4 years. So if they travel after September, will the end date be the I-20 end date or capped at 4 years?
No, I've gotten this question before, and the 4 year start time is not retroactive. So if you've already, and particularly for PhD students, if you are on your third year, on your fourth year, whatever the case may be, it's not that they're going to take the time that you've already been here and count that against you. So most likely it will be your program end date. And so that is what we're going to be looking for. And it's going to depend also on if you travel or not, really. And I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to put people in a situation where you're afraid to travel because of that, because that's not the case. But if you do travel, they will sort of affix that date onto your passport or your I-94. If you do not travel, then you will have a situation where most likely you will need an extension after that when you're reaching close to that program end date.
All right, we're back at Farida now.
All right.
Hi, Christian.
Hi.
This question is similar to the question that Jamie had asked. It's
Okay.
also about travel.
Okay.
The student is asking if my I-20 dates are August 2022 to 2028, can I travel in December 2026? I have a concern about one line in the USCIS document. Your I-94 end date will be changed to your I-20 end date or 4 year cap program, whichever comes first. Does that mean if I travel in December 2026, the end date will change to August 2026?
Um, Remind me just because you said a lot of dates. When is the program end date?
It's the program end date is in 2028.
Okay, so most likely what's going to happen with that line of it'll be your program end date or capped at 4 years. What that's going to look like is going to be dependent on the program end date that you have. And so if you are traveling, let's say 2026 and your program end date is 2028, that's the one that most likely they will honor. If you are traveling, let's say you're traveling now, right? And your program end date is not for 2031. They will cap it at 4 years. And so nobody can go past September 14th of 2030. And so without needing an extension. And so just because you have an expiration, and this is sort of the thing I want to reiterate for everybody, is that just because you have an expiration date does not mean that you immediately have to depart the United States or you're out of status or anything like that. They have made it so that you can apply for an extension of your status when you are about 6 months before that expiration of that status. So, for whatever reason that you may need the extension, let's say you need a program extension because you had medical issues, because you had academic difficulties and you couldn't complete your master's. Let's say you want to go, you're on a PhD and you need more time for research. If you go on OPT, if you go on STEM OPT, right? All of those sorts of things are valid reasons for requesting an extension of status. That is something that you can apply for, or at least we have gotten the guidance for, that you can apply for 6 months before your expiration date.
Okay. The next question is from a student who would like to know whether he or she can obtain a new Form I-20 before September 15th if he or she wants to transfer to another college, either
Yeah.
for the same degree level or a lower one, and the program starts in January.
So I'm going to answer that in two parts. The
Okay.
first part is that yes, before September 15th, if you have any requests to change your I-20, that you come into our office and do it. Now you can come into our office, but everything is available online. I don't want to freak out Jamie. But everything is available online through Google Forms. And so you can do a change of level, you can do a change of major, you can transfer in and out. I mean, nobody's transferring in that's in this chat, but um, you can do all of those things. You can get a program extension, all those sorts of things. Now, just because you can do it doesn't mean that it will be authorized through our office. And so if you need to do a program extension, we need proof, oftentimes from your academic advisor, proving that you need that extra time. But we are able to do all of that leading up to September 15th. Now, after September 15th, I do not know. There will be a new CVIS platform that will be released shortly before September 15th. We do not know anything about it other than it will be released. And that will give, Jamie, Michelle, and I some time to kind of play around with it and see what it is that we can do in office versus what are things that you will now have to do through the government. The second part of that question, Farida, remind me, is
Um,
transferring
he
out.
wanted to he wanted to know whether or not there'll be a change if it's the same level or a lower level, and the program starts in January, like the spring semester.
Yeah, and so Jamie, maybe you can jump into this one because I'm not. Can you transfer out for a program that starts in January? I think that you can, but I think that you need to account for what you're going to do in the fall.
Yeah, because you can't transfer longer than 5 months prior. But yeah, I would assume you would probably because your transfer would be pending, but you would still have, your record through us. So you would still be maintaining whatever status that is with Michigan Tech,
Yeah,
whether that's courses or OPT or whatever it may be.
right. Right. So yeah, you can do it, but you'd still have to account for the fall, right? And so you can do your transfer so long as it's 5 months before your start of the new program, but you will have to account for that fall and maintain status in the fall at MTU.
Okay, for the next question, the student is asking, if I'm a PhD student and my advisor moves to another university after September 15th, and we need to follow them to continue our research, can that qualify as an extenuating circumstance, allowing an SEVP approved school transfer?
I don't know. I don't know that one, and that is because this process hasn't started yet. I do not know how the extensions are going to work. We're getting a new extension form that will be published in the next few weeks. So I can review that form and get an idea of what extenuating circumstances are going to look like, what kind of documentation that they're going to request for extensions and extenuating circumstances. But they were very dramatic in the guidance, and some of the extenuating circumstances were like your school closes completely, right? Or they no longer have any funding or anything like that. Not personal funding, but the university, it does not have any money anymore. So very extreme examples for that. And so we're hoping that once this process starts, we can get an idea based off of experience through other students in other institutions of how these extensions are working, how these extenuating circumstances are working, the timing for the extensions, how long they're going to take, how much they're going to be, all that sort of stuff. We're hoping that will come down through some further guidance the sooner that we get, and even maybe into September and October.
It's been a postdoc student. I'm a postdoc on J1 with my family and
Oh, I
two
can't hear you,
dependents.
Frida.
The next question is from
Yep.
a postdoc student. Is it
Okay.
better?
Yes.
He says, I am a postdoc on J1 with my family and two dependents. I
Okay.
am doing my second year of 3-year projects. Will it affect me and my family? Also, I am working on another grant with MTU as a PI. Will it affect that?
Um, I'm going to answer the second question first. No, that should not affect the grant that you're working as a PI. This guidance has nothing to do with internal MTU work or any work that you are doing within the university and other outside agencies. And so that does not affect anything in that realm. You are in your second year of 3 years of your project. It's really going to depend on your program end date, okay? And I don't know what that is, but let's say you are in your second of three, and then presumably your program end date is next year. All that means is that if for some reason you need an extension of that time because you have another project that's going to take longer, because this one's going to take a little longer, whatever the case may be, right? And you're eligible to extend further, you're going to have to submit an extension for you that will cover your dependents as well. So you're not submitting three different applications for extensions. Whatever happens to you will happen to your dependents as well. So if you are denied the extension, they're denied. If you're granted, they're granted. And so you're going to want to monitor that for the purposes of when to submit an extension.
Okay. This is also from another graduate student on STEM OPT.
Okay.
He or she states that the STEM OPT expires in June 2027. However, worst case scenario, my H-1B does not get picked in my last try. I wish to seek a PhD. How does the new rule impact my strategy?
Um, okay. I put June. Remind me of the question again. I completely blanked out. But June 2027 is the program end date.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The person is on STEM OPT and is hoping
Great.
that he or she's H-1B will be picked. If that does not happen, they would like to do a PhD. How does the new rule affect their strategy?
So nothing's currently right now we're seeing is affecting H-1Bs. And so cap gap, all of those sorts of things are untouched at the time that I'm saying this. But as we've seen, things change rapidly. And so I can't promise you that tomorrow or when you need the information that it won't be different. But right now, as of today, nothing has been affected in that realm. If you were to, let's say, get close to your STEM OPT and your H-1B is not picked in the lottery, and you are like, you know what, I'm just going to move on and I'm going to go to a PhD program, you will have to submit an extension of status at least 6 months, not at least, you can submit it at least 6 months before the expiration date of your STEM OPT, which would be your program end date. And it doesn't have to be 6 months. It can be 1 month. It can be 3 months. It can be 5 months. But the earliest that you can do it is 6 months. And you would need to show in that extension of status that you are submitting to USCIS the need for that extension. Okay. And that need would be I applied, I got into a PhD program, maybe an admissions letter, an I-20 from that university, whether it's MTU or some other university, to be able to show the need for that extension.
Okay, the next question states that I am planning to travel outside the country and do not have an H-1B visa yet, with
Okay.
only one attempt remaining. Would it be advisable to travel internationally if I am not selected for the H-1B next year and need to enroll in another master's program? Could international travel affect my ability to do so, or will there be no issues?
Um, this will depend too on your current status. And so are you under, I need a little bit more information to answer this one. So are you in F or J? Do you have a program end date? That's really what we're looking for.
Yeah.
The H-1B stuff really is not, if you weren't picked for the lottery, I know that that stinks and you just try again. But that has no effect. That has no effect on any of this. And so the international travel piece will depend on your what status that you're in. Are you maintaining status and that program end date? And so if you give me that information, then we can revisit your question.
It looks like they said they are
Oh,
on an F1 visa on STEM OPT.
oh, okay. F1 on STEM OPT. And so if you are, I never recommend honestly traveling close to the end of your STEM OPT because you are in a situation that you're sort of navigating, hoping to transition to the next status, but there's really nothing that protects you towards that end, right? So I always recommend that you try to stay in country towards the end of your STEM OPT while you figure out the next step. Um, so for that one, you will need to do an extension of status in the hopes that you are able to get that H-1B. That is going to be a little bit more challenging because you don't have as much proof for the need to extend your status because you're waiting for an H-1B, right? They most likely won't do that. But if you were to jump into a new program, they might be able to extend your status to do that while you're still waiting for that H-1B to kind of come by. I know that that's not ideal right now, but you would be in this situation had the duration of status rule not come about because you'd need to figure out sort of what your next step is going to be after that STEM OPT, whether that is um, most likely getting into a new program so that you can wait out the H-1B.
Okay. The next question, the student is asking that you repeat the last dates that you mentioned in 2030. Student states that I'm a PhD student and I have just 1 year at Michigan Tech. My I-20 has a program ending in December 2030, and I will need to travel at the end of September and also in December. Do you think they will reduce this end date?
Most likely they will reduce it. Again, this is something that take it with a tiny grain of salt, because I don't want you to come back from that travel and say Christian lied to me if they didn't shorten it, okay? And I don't want them to shorten it for you, but they may shorten that because the max is going to be, have it memorized that date. It's November, give me a second. September 14th. 2030 is that capped date. And so they may shorten yours a few months if they do at all. And so just know that September 14th, 2030 seems to be the date of that hard transition. And so because you have a program end date that is December 13th, 2030, they're going to go off of your program end date or 4 years from the implementation of the duration of status rule, which is that September 14th, 2026, whichever one is shorter. And so in your situation, because your program end date is a couple months longer, they might shorten it to that capped end date. And so that capped end date will include your 4 years plus a 30-day grace period for F and Js.
Okay, the next question is, if I finish my master's and start a PhD, Can I transfer my Sea Beach record and remain in the US, or would I need to leave the US and apply for a new F1 visa?
No. So there is this question's a little bit tricky because naturally us that work in international offices all throughout the United States are figuring out sort of loopholes and things that we can do and ways that we interpret the guidance that maybe is not as detailed. Um, so if you are finishing your master's and you want to jump into a PhD program, you will have to submit an extension of status if it's after September 15th of 2026. That extension of status will go through USCIS on Form I-539. I do not know right now how long that's going to take, and I do not know how much it's going to be. Okay, that is something that USCIS is currently working on to figure out those guidelines because you have to be able to show that you need your status extended for you to go into this PhD program. Because your program will have ended, you are able to then transfer institutions. Okay, it's the no transferring is during your program, and so if you're on your first year as a master's student in at MTU, you can't just go to Harvard, right, and transfer midway. That is where it's not allowed. But if you are finishing your program, you will submit that extension of status, and you can then, go and transfer to another institution if that's what you wish to do your PhD. There is sort of a loophole a little bit, I'm afraid to say that a little bit because I know all of our international students and staff and faculty are really smart and tough and will find any way to navigate and try to make things better and easier and faster. But there is a possibility for you to, let's say at the end of your master's, leave the United States and reapply for your F1 for your PhD program and then come back in with a new expiration date. That is a loophole that we are seeing, and that is going to depend on two things. That is going to depend, first of all, on taking on the risk of travel, right? Especially depending on the country that you're from. This is not going to be advisable for every single country. Unfortunately, right, our students from Iran might not have that same luxury as our students from India or China, right? Um, and so we're looking at travel restrictions. That's going to be the first one because we still have travel bans in place. The second one is going to be how quickly you can get an interview notice for this. Um, and how quickly that processing is going to be. Is it going to be faster than waiting it out here in the United States through USCIS? I don't know right now because nobody has submitted an extension at all because they're not able to do so quite yet. So that is really going to be something that I will be curious and monitoring the rest of this year because we're going to want to see how those things are moving. The Department of State, which is who governs the issuance of visas abroad, and I think we have David around who's our expert at the Department of State. He was a Department of State officer for many years. Um, their own priorities, their own timelines is very different than here in the United States through USCIS. And so you're going to have to sort of risk that yourself and see which one works. But both of them theoretically should work. Okay. If you want to go through the process of getting a new visa for that new program, you can do that, or you can do it here in the United States through an extension.
The next question is from a student who is on STEM OPT,
Okay.
which expires in June 2027. Student is asking, if I travel internationally post September 15, 2026, what should I expect on my latest I-94? Follow-up question is, what AUD should I expect? Is it 30 days before program end date?
It's 30 days after program end date. So you will most likely get your program end date plus 30 days, which is the grace period. And that's both the same for F and Js. Again, this isn't sort of a 100% guidance. And it may be. So um, I don't know. I'm not going to be there with you at the airport when they, stamp your passport or they give you or they issue or punch in the information for the I-94. So you're going to have to monitor that and keep us posted with that because it's not going to be an exact science. It's not going to be the same for everybody. I mean, I'm curious and I think it'll happen. Let's say you and I are on the same visa with the same program end date, but we're traveling and I come in through Chicago and you come in through New York. I don't know if it's going to be the same. Ideally and theoretically, it should be the same. But because it's so new, we need to give it time for sort of everyone to get in the same process. And so that's going to take quite a bit of time. I don't know what they're doing right now to maybe make sure that that process goes really well and goes seamlessly. Um, but just know that there may be some discrepancies, and you may come back and say Christian didn't know anything that he was talking about, and that is just sort of those discrepancies that it won't be a perfect system. So your AUD may be your program end date, it may be your program end date plus the 30 days, it may be something else, right? And so it should be those things, but if it is not, definitely let me know so that we can learn from that and see how it is that they're processing these things.
Okay. This question from a student reads, I applied for OPT and it's been 150 days plus, but I did not get any reply from USCIS. Will the new policy affect anything, or do I need to go with premium processing?
No, the to the first part. So this will not affect you or your OPT application. Most likely if it's been, first of all, let me start with saying that all of you have been warriors at OPT because we've had so many changes in that arena when it came to travel banned countries and the benefits pause that if you were from one of those travel ban countries. And so they are taking a long time. They are taking a long, long, long time, but they are coming through. We are getting approvals from individuals that applied a long time ago that were from travel ban countries. So just be patient. I know you have been patient, but they are coming through. They're slowly coming in. You do not have to do anything because you've already applied for OPT. You will most likely have to do an extension of status when you are getting ready to apply for STEM OPT if you're eligible for STEM OPT. Um, and then the second question being premium processing. I never like to give the government more money if I can avoid it. Um, it really will depend on the country that you're from and if it's one of those travel ban countries. And of course, the financial aspect of it, right? I don't want you to just spend money if it's not going to result in your favor. And I've honestly seen students, not just from MTU, but from other universities that are from travel ban countries that have submitted premium processing fees and they do not get them back and they do not get a result within the time frame for premium processing. And so it's kind of I wouldn't recommend it. I know it's very alluring because you've been waiting for so long, but I think if you are from one of those travel ban countries, premium processing is not going to help you right now. It is going to come through and you are able to stay in the United States for as long as it takes for that to get a decision. I know it's frustrating and that you legally cannot work while that is pending. Um, but you are maintaining status. You are allowed to stay here in the United States while that is pending.
Okay. The next question is, can you talk about filing for extension of stay? If this is also taking effect from the 15th of September, does everyone filing for OPT have to file for this?
If you are, yes, I can talk about that. If you are applying for OPT now through March of 2027, you do not have to submit an extension of status. Okay, it's going to be, I believe, March 14th. Don't quote me on that one. I will. I have Michelle from our department that handles all the OPT, and so her and I are navigating through a process of that. But if it's applying between September 14th, 2026 for 6 months, you are not subject to an extension of status. You do not have to submit one. If you are applying for OPT or STEM OPT after March of 2027, you will have to submit an extension of status. And I do not know the process quite yet. Nobody knows the process quite yet. I do have an idea just based off of, other types of filings in immigration law. You will, very similar to how you apply for OPT, how you apply for STEM OPT, where you're submitting the I-765 to USCIS, you would submit the same applications for your OPT, STEM OPT, but you will add one more application for that extension of status, and that is that I-539. And that is through USCIS. And like I said, I do not know if they'll maintain the same fee for it, if there'll be no fee for it, or what type of fee there will be for it, as well as what documents you need to submit with that extension. We do not know those sorts of things right now. You can go on and look at the I-539 right now, but don't really hone in on it because they're publishing a new one. And a new one with, I'm assuming, questions or check boxes that'll apply to this type of extension.
Okay, these students would like an outlook on how things have changed with regards to OPT approvals for the countries that are on the travel ban list. I am aware the pause was lifted, so what has been the approval so far, just in the context of NTU students?
Yeah, we've gotten a lot of approvals. I don't know the exact number. Um, like I said, Michelle from our department, and she was going to be in here, but she's having some trouble logging in. She is better equipped to answer that question than I am. But I do know that we were both so excited when those approvals started trickling in. And the first one that we got, we thought maybe was, kind of a fluke, and we didn't expect it. And then the next day we got another one from a completely different country, but still one of the travel ban countries. And so I think that they've lifted the pause and they're slowly adjudicating them. They're slowly rendering decisions. But I will give you some insider tip, and that is that um, we do know that USCIS is currently understaffed, and that is affecting a lot of immigration applications, not just OPT, STEM OPT, change of status, not just those applications that are important to. Oh, Michelle's here.
Hi.
Hi.
I
You,
couldn't talk. It wouldn't let me talk. I'm like,
oh, you came
so
at the perfect time.
yeah, no, we're getting a lot of the travel ban countries are coming in full force, which is awesome. But what is happening to our regular OPT who, like, for instance, applied for the summer start date of OPT, those are all being pushed back, meaning they are pushing out the travel ban countries first, trying to get caught up on those, which is causing issues for our current OPT applications. So, but yes, I've seen so many of the travel ban countries come in that we did not expect to even see come in, some that were going on 10, 11 months. So we are excited about that.
And that is difficult, especially we feel it just as much as you guys do. I know that your life is sort of put on pause. Michelle and I have had this conversation so many times of just, being very sympathetic and empathetic and emotional and all those things because we really want those to go forward for you so you can continue on with your journey. But we're getting them in. So it's a great, great outlook right now.
Okay, the next question is, if my PI were to move to another university, what options would I have if I wanted to continue my PhD research under their supervision at the new institution? Would I be able to transfer my CVIS record to the new university, or will there be another immigration-related steps or requirements I would need to follow?
We don't know quite yet. And the reason for that is because I do not know how the extenuating circumstances are going to look. If that is something that Jamie, Michelle, and I can go into your CVIS record and request a transfer based off of extenuating circumstances, and we require documentation that you provide us, or if that is something that you will have to go through USCIS for. I do not know. I do not know. And so that is part of the guidance that we have not gotten yet. And I'm hoping that this new CVIS platform that will be released, that like I said, all three of us can go in and kind of play around with it and see what it is that we can and can't do. But I imagine that something relating to that, anything related to the extenuating circumstances, I believe, I'm hoping will be in the CVIS platform, but I don't know that quite yet.
Okay. The next question is, my F1 visa expired July 2023. I'm on H1B approval notice starting October 1st, 2025, but not stamped. I've not traveled outside US in the last 4 years. My status is current, but visa is expired. Does this new rule apply in any way that limits how long I can overstay on expired visa while maintaining my active status? If so, what's okay, I'm not sure I understand what the student is saying, but I think he's asking how the limits will apply to his current status, even though his visa has expired.
Yeah, this won't affect H-1Bs currently. We haven't seen anything that shows that this is affecting H-1Bs. Cap is still strong. It's not anything that has been affected. The only changes that I've seen this year for H-1Bs have been in wage determinations, and that's something that David, who from our office, who's our employment specialist for H-1Bs, Michelle's our employment specialist for CPT OPT. Is monitoring, and we're monitoring that very, very closely. But no, nothing for H-1Bs should be affected. Um, if you are here with your expired visa, I'm not I don't try to look at the news or anything like that because it stresses me out like it does for our whole department. But I am noticing, I am seeing naturally those highlights of people being stopped and not being allowed to come into the United States with expired visas. I don't know the specifics of every single case, right? Because you're only given what the media sort of gives you and portrays the case as. And so I don't know. Oh, David said he's on H-1B since October 2025. His I-94 from the approval notice is what controls his status, not his old visa. So there you have it. There you have it from David, who's our expert. He said your I-94 from the approval notice is what controls your status, not the old expired visa. Awesome.
Thank you, David. This student is asking, says, I'm a second year master student in the STEM field, graduating in December 2026 and planning to start OPT in January 2027. My I-20 shows my program end date as April 2027. How will this work? Do I need to apply for an extension of status during my OPT, or do I only need to apply when I apply for STEM OPT extension?
For STEM. Because you are covered within that 6 month transition period, you will not have to apply for an extension of status. This is something that Michelle's well versed on, but we're also awaiting more guidance, right? So she is the one that will be monitoring, all of the STEM and OPT applications from the implementation date of September all the way to that 6 month transition period, which is in March. And so anyone that falls within September and March, you will not have to file for an extension. I believe that it is March 14th. Like I said, don't quote me on that one, but it is around mid-March that you will not have to apply for an extension. And so anything after that, you will. So for your particular circumstance, you will not for OPT, but you will for STEM.
Okay. This student is asking, he says, how does this affect OPT if I apply this September since I'm graduating in December and the delay is issuing the OPT authorization? Does the 30-day cap come into effect as I wait?
Do you want me to pipe in?
Sure.
Okay, I think you're referring to your 30-day grace period, and technically you are grandfathered into that 60-day grace period, and you remain F1 while your OPT is pending, no matter how long that takes. Does that answer the question? I guess is kind of what I was thinking you were looking at.
I will say, just to add on to your point, and I'm glad that you brought that up, and this is for everybody, is that all of you that have not that are in the United States currently, F and J's alike, you have, well, J's are different because they've always had a 30-day grace period. So F's only. F's, you have 60 days of a grace period. And so that is the only grandfathered that you get. However, if you travel at any point after the implementation rule, when you come back, you will be no longer grandfathered and you will be reduced to 30 days of a grace period. And that'll apply across the board to everybody. And so they won't honor that 60 days that you had originally unless you stay in the United States for the remainder of your program time.
Okay. This question is slightly different. It says, I am a current F1 student who is in the process of adjusting status to a permanent resident. If I use the EAD obtained from my adjustment process, will that cancel my F1 status? If I intend to graduate this fall, must I apply for OPT in case I do not get my green card before graduation? Or the 5-year EAD covers me?
Yes and yes, and no. Yes and yes and no. I using the EAD will invalidate your F1. However, I'm very cautious when I say that because if you are using the EAD within the regulations of the F1, then you are not invalidating it. What I mean by that is that you have the EAD and you're using it to work 20 hours on campus, right? You're not invalidating your F1. You're only invalidating it if you are using it contrary to the regulations of the F1. And so if you use it to work more than the allotted times that you are given as an F1 or working out of campus, then you will invalidate your F1. My recommendation is that you are currently in the pending stage. And so during a pending, when you are changing from status to status, is not to do anything that will affect the current status that you're in, because it may be a slam dunk case. It may be 100% that you'll get that green card, but you don't have it yet. You haven't been approved. And so worst case scenario, if you get that denied, we always want to refer back to the fact that you are maintaining status in your F. You don't want to be in a situation where that gets denied, you violated your F, and now you're out of status and out of luck. So I know that the EAD is very tempting. It's very, very tempting. And I would caution you to use it. I would say that do not use it. And yes, apply for OPT because that is going to maintain your status, even though I know it is an extra cost that you have to undergo, because it's going to preserve your status until you get that change of status decision. It may be approved and it may be all fine, and you'll say, "Oh, Christian, he made me spend X amount of money, doing the OPT that I never even used." But I think it is important just because we're seeing so many delays in status that I don't want you affected. Okay, but also I think that something that's important is, and I can't stress enough, is seeking out an immigration attorney wherever it is that you are. If you're on OPT in another state, if you're in STEM OPT in another state, especially if you're transitioning from into the green card stage, whatever that looks like through family, through employment, you're doing H-1B, you're doing all those sorts of things, definitely seek out an immigration attorney in your area to get some advice on your particular circumstance because they may have more information on how current changes and better advisement on how these things are going to affect you.
Okay, this student is a final year student who will be completing the master's in December 2026 and would like to apply for a PhD in the spring of 2027. They would like to know how this is going to affect them if their program end date is 18th of December 2026.
So you will need to submit an extension of status to USCIS when you are requesting essentially an extension of your program to enter that PhD program. And so I would imagine that you would need an I-20 from the institution that's admitted you, a letter of admission, all those sorts of things that go into being admitted into a new program to prove that you need that extension of status. So I do not have a good understanding right now of what you're going to do in that interim period. Okay. The only thing I do know is that you will be maintaining status, you will be in status while you are waiting for that decision. I don't know. And something that we need a little bit more clarified is, let's say you submit the extension in November and you start your program in January. I don't know if you are able to start that and so we need a little bit more guidance on that, especially because we've seen how long things take at the USCIS level, that I would imagine my gut feeling is that you can go on and start that PhD program, but I am not 100% sure because we don't have that guidance quite yet.
The next question is from a PhD student who has an end date on his I-20 of 2028. He's asking if he can still apply for OPT after his PhD, or does it mean that he cannot because he has run out of the end date time?
No, you still can. You still have every benefit that you have as an F and a J. F being, CPTs, OPTs, J's being academic training. All of those benefits are still there and yours to use. But you will need that extension of status. They're kind of just making it for you to have an extra step to get to that sort of place. Whether that's applying for OPT, STEM OPT, academic training, or transferring to another institution, changing your program, all those sorts of things, you're just going to have this extra step where you have to apply for this extension of status through USCIS to get that authority from the government to extend your status so that that covers whatever thing that you are trying to get at, right? Whether that's the OPT, STEM OPT, or a PhD or a master's or whatever the case may be.
Okay, next students ask, I am graduating in fall 2026 and my F1 visa expires in November 2026. Would it be advisable for me to travel outside the US after my OPT is approved in order to renew my visa? Will traveling and renewing my visa affect my I-94 status in any way? Also, would I still be eligible to apply for STEM OPT extension after renewing my visa?
I'm going to answer the second part first because it's easier. Yes, right? That goes to what I just said. All of your benefits are still intact. It just will most likely require that extension of status. You can still travel, you can still renew your visa. And Farida, remind me, when is the program end date?
Oh, 1 second. Fall 2026.
Oh, okay. I'm seeing it in the chat.
Yeah, the student is graduating in fall 2026, but the visa expires in November 2026. And
I would,
they would like,
sorry. I would, you will most likely have to apply for OPT, right? Of course. 90 days, at least 90 days before your program end date. And so Michelle will guide you through all of that. And you will not have to submit an extension because you are covered during that 6-month transition period. I would not renew your visa until you have that OPT approval, like you said, right? Because without it, you are sort of in limbo. You're kind of waiting for that decision for them to kind of continue your status. And so I would apply for OPT, which I think you should be doing soon. And then once your OPT is approved, then consider traveling to your home country and renewing your visa. And yes, you will be able to apply for STEM OPT, but that one most likely will require that extra step of the extension of status.
okay. Next students ask, for an F1 visa student, what happens if I collect a master's along the way of my PhD and decide to cancel my PhD in Michigan Tech and want to pursue PhD in another university in the USA? How would the new rule affect me?
So that is a common question that we get, and I've gotten that from the administration of how do we handle these sorts of things. And so there is guidance. how the duration of status guidance came about was that you will not be able to transition to a lower level once your program is complete. So because you did not complete the PhD, you can drop down to the master's. We do not know, once again, how that's going to look like, if that is something that Jamie, Michelle, and I will be able to log in to see this and see that information or be able to do that change. I don't know. Or if that's going to be something that's also going to be spearheaded by USCIS. I don't know how that's going to look like right now. Um, but because once you complete a program, you cannot go to an education level that's lower than that. So if I've completed my PhD, I cannot go get a master's. That is not allowed in the guidance. So, yes, you are able to, if you get a master's along the way in your PhD, drop down to the master's. And then let's say you finish your master's and you're like, I want to go to a PhD, you most likely will have to submit an extension of status for that PhD program. You have already completed it, so you cannot go from a master's to a bachelor's, right? That's how that would look like, but it would not preclude you from being able to go off to do a PhD, so long as you do that extension.
Okay. Next question is, I have my F1 visa till November 2027. I wish to apply for a PhD under STEM. Do I need to reapply for a new I-20 or renew my visa if I'm currently in my home country?
Renew your visa only if it's expired because you will not be able to travel without that. Do you need to apply for a new I-20? You will. That is sort of the loophole we were talking about earlier, right? Which is for you, it probably makes sense to go through the consular route and apply for a new I-20 with that PhD program. Um, and that might be quicker. Like I said, it's going to depend on your risk of travel and you're already in your home country. The second one is going to be the efficiency of your home country's consulate wherever you're applying for your visa. So that you can come in and get a new expiration date, a new AUD date versus coming into the United States and then doing the extension here. I think that it would be faster for you to go through the consular route versus doing anything here in the United States.
Okay, thank you. The
Mhm.
next question states, I see news about ICE having begun their operations, especially at airports. If I have pending approval for extension of status or OPT, and I had a single entry visa that expired long ago, am I safe traveling through air?
If you are traveling domestically within the United States, you should be okay, even if your visa has expired. And so, for instance, if I'm here in Michigan and I'm traveling to Florida, you're okay. But you cannot travel internationally with a visa that's revoked or expired. Because you will be allowed to enter your home country because presumably you're a citizen of that country, but you will not be able to come back into the United States with a visa that is expired.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Next students ask, I am on a STEM OPT. I am currently working as a research assistant. I intend to travel outside the country. What advice do you have for me in this regard as I work on OPT?
It depends on your home country, and so let's start with that. So give me a little asterisk of it depends on your home country and where it is that you're going. It depends on your visa, right? If you have a valid visa to be able to come back into the United States. But other than that, it really is not going to affect anything other than when you come back, you're going to change. You won't have duration of status anymore, but you'll have an AUD that's affixed either to your passport or your I-94 or both, um, which will have an expiration date. And presumably that expiration date will be the end of your STEM OPT date plus 30 days.
Okay. Next question is, if I finish my master's and start a PhD, can I transfer my CVIS record and remain in the US, or would I need to leave the US and apply for a new F1 visa?
I think that we hit that question already. Um, and it's going to be either. You can apply for an extension of status here in the United States, and await that decision, or you can travel abroad and apply for a new visa with the new I-20 for the new program. And so those two things, like I keep saying, it's going to be your ability to undertake risk depending on the home country that you're from, how quickly you can get this processing done at your home country, because right now we currently don't know how the process is going to look in the United States.
Okay. This student just joined the webinar and
Yeah.
mentioned that he missed some answers you had already given for the
Yeah.
banned countries. He's a PhD candidate from one of these countries and and he or she's visa has expired. How would the new law affect his or her situation regarding program extension and OPT?
So for it's going to depend on your program end date. And so I don't know when that is. And so if you could put in there your program end date, and then we can come back to your question just to give you some better guidance.
Okay. Next question. What happens to my status if I apply for OPT and the response gets delayed beyond the grace period for both 60 and 30-day cases?
It doesn't matter. You're still in status. You are still, so long as you apply while you're in status for OPT, STEM OPT, program extensions, extension of stat, all those sorts of things, right, that you're applying for and waiting for. So long as you do it while you are in status, then you are preserving your status, even if it goes beyond the allotted wait time for the decision. And so just because they are taking so long to answer these inquiries does not mean that it's your fault. And so you did everything correctly, and so the government is not going to punish you just because it's taking so long. And that's the issue that we had with the travel ban countries applying for OPT, is that they were getting past the 120, 150 days, but you're not out of status, right? It affects you because you can't work, you can't really do anything while you're waiting for that, but you're not out of status.
Okay, the next question is if someone gets OPT in December 2027 or January 2028 and then travels back to their home country to get a valid visa, d does the person get a 30-day grace period or a 60-day grace period?
Anyone that travels after September 15th, 2026 internationally and comes back, it will be a 30-day grace period. Nobody coming into the United States for the first time after September 15th, 2026, or anybody traveling that's already here and coming back after that will have a 30-day grace period. And that includes both F and Js.
Okay. This question is asking about what it means to complete one PhD and enroll in another.
Yeah, I see that one. So that will be the same education level, and so you will not be allowed to do that. That is the guidance we have right now. I do not know, excuse me, if they will have any kind of extenuating circumstances or the ability to process that. I don't know that one. That's going to be the same as a lot of the SEVIS inner workings. I'm not sure, but one of the firm guidances was that once you complete a degree level, you cannot go to the same or lower. And so my thought process is that you will not be able to do that, but I'm always very optimistic and hopeful that there's going to be some way around it. And so I don't know right now.
Okay, this question is similar to a question that you've already answered.
Yeah.
It's about whether or not, okay, student states that my STEM OPT ends in June 2027. Since I already hold a master's level status, if I'm not selected in the H-1B lottery, can I still enroll in another master's to stay in F1 status, or does the new rule mean I'm only applied to move up to a higher degree level,
If
like
you
a
apply,
PhD?
if you apply for the change of level before September 15th, you can do a second master's. If you apply after September 15th, you will not be able to do a second master's because you've already completed the master's degree level, so you can only go higher than that.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the students' questions.
Awesome.
Mm,
I'm going to give it just a couple more minutes to see if anybody else has any other questions, but these questions have been so incredibly great. I can't believe that we almost hit 100 people that were here. We really enjoyed I mean, I enjoyed doing it. And I think that you all had some really, like I said, fascinating questions, great questions. I think that we were able to answer most of them without needing to say, you know what, I don't know, I don't know. There's still a lot of unknowns, and that's why I ask you to be patient in your questions and with our office, because we are learning all of this at the same time that you are. Granted, we are, we're able to kind of get that information and digest it and dissect it and disseminate it out very quickly, but it still takes us some time because, as you can see, some of you have very similar questions, but the answer is different depending on your situation. And so I ask you for it, that patience. We will keep you informed. We will have more of these. So in case you want to come back and have more questions, if your friend didn't make it and wants to come and ask their questions, we're going to have these periodically as the semester rolls on. And so, oh, Michelle, one came in for you. Would you advise premium processing for OPT processing?
Hello. I guess again, like Christian was saying about premium processing, it all depends. Like, do you have a job lined up? Do you not have a job lined up? What country are you from? Normally, like Christian would say, we would hate for you to give the government any more money than you have to, because it's really expensive. It's over $2,000 just to get that premium processing. And the premium processing does not start until you have your biometric appointment. So while you apply for OPT, and let's say you wait a month for your biometric appointment, and even though you've already paid for that premium processing, it does not even start until you've had that biometrics. So lots of variables go into it. Unless it's absolutely necessary and you're going to lose a job, I always say no. And that's just the truth. You can
Yeah,
always apply later. If you like you're getting, let's say you don't have a job, and let's say then you get a job. You can always go back into that application system and apply later for that premium processing. It does not have to be in that initial OPT process, right? So you can pay for the initial OPT and then go back in and pay for premium down the line.
I
I
wanted
do.
to add, oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
No,
Oh,
go
it's
ahead.
it's besides the point. So if you were
Oh,
still
okay.
talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that
yeah.
one.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, it looks like we got two more questions in, but I also wanted to mention that on the IPS website on the main homepage, we do have a duration of status button where you can go onto a web page where we do have a lot of I mean, obviously they're more generic. We've covered a lot of specifics in this one, but there's a lot of frequently asked questions on that page as well. So you can always check that out. And then yeah, it looks like we do have some more questions. One of the questions was, when do you think they will release more information about these changes? Do you think it'll be after September 15th or before?
I think that first of all, yes, and I want to shout out Jamie and Farida who did a phenomenal job on our duration of status page. Definitely go in there and check it out. Please know that a lot of this we're just working off of the information that we're given and the guidance that we've been given. Um, and there's still so many unknowns, and that goes into the answer to the question that was brought up. I think that we are going to start seeing a lot of information come maybe a week or so before September 15th, and definitely throughout the rest of the year, September 15th and on. And we're going to be able to sort of gauge how other institutions are dealing with this, how students are dealing with this. We're going to have the first ever student that's going to apply for an extension of status at some point. And we're going to be able to learn how those processes are going, how long it's taking, how much it's going to be, what are some extenuating circumstances? Is the government being more flexible or more strict? And so that's what I mean by give us some patience, because a lot of these things we will not know how they do until we're in real time having to do those things. And so we'll be able to provide you with so much great information, so much in-depth information as the months go on. We're going to have students that travel and come back, and we're going to be able to, meet with them and see what their AUDs look like and their I-94s look like and their passports look like, and so that we can better assist everybody else that has not gone through that sort of thing. So I foresee that we will start seeing a lot of implementation pieces, like I said, the CVIS, um, the new CVIS update, and as well as the update to the I-539 that we should see in the next few weeks. I would say in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then we're going to start seeing a lot of rollout after September 15th.
Okay, another question just came in
Yep.
from a
Yeah.
PhD student. It reads, I am currently a PhD student and I decided to drop and get a master's. I do have a previous master's, so is that not allowed to get OPT because I completed my master's already, or my extension will not get approved? I did use OPT during my previous master's.
Yeah, Michelle just answered it. Yeah, you only get OPT per education level. Did you have something to add, Michelle?
Oh, no, basically, yeah, just what he said. You
Sorry.
Can you hear? Oh, that's okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So yes, you only get OPT once at each degree level. So if you were planning on doing another OPT or that's what your hopes were, that's not an option. You would have to go back to the PhD to get another OPT.
Yeah, and then this last one for Michelle. If you're finishing fall, when should we start applying for OPT?
Up to 90 days before your academic end date. So if your I-20, for instance, says December of 2026, you're going to be eligible, September, middle of September.
Yeah.
But if your I-20 goes, for instance, in the spring of April 2027, it's going to go off of what the advisor lists on your OPT recommendation form, because I'm going to shorten that I-20 to the date that your advisor lists. So you would have to talk to your advisor and kind of figure out that date. And again, it's still 90 days from that date is the earliest you can apply. If you were to even go and try to apply before that, you will automatically be denied. They won't even, do not go past go. That is what they're doing now with these. They're not sending out RFEs anymore, from what I'm understanding, and different things. So we have to tread very cautiously and follow my emails and directions I send.
Yeah, definitely follow. We try not to bombard you with emails. So anything that you see from us, it's important, whether it's immigration information, or even events for you to take part in with IPS or on campus. And so thank you all so much. This has been so incredibly great. We're going to stop the questions for now. Any questions that are left over, we will process them for our next round of live sessions. If you have any questions that you were like, oh my God, I wanted to get it in, but I just couldn't, definitely email us at ips@mtu.edu and we will compile those questions for the next live session. And so we're hoping to do one of these every 2 to 3 weeks, and especially after the implementation of the rule, just so that we can update you all on the most up-to-date information that we have. Okay. Thank you all so much. Like I said, like Jamie pointed out, this will be recorded, and so we'll be able to post that on our social medias. And so you can, if you got here late or if you wanted just some reiteration of the same questions, then you can definitely go back and see it. All right. Thank you all so much for attending, and we will keep you posted about our next one.
Thank you guys.
Thank you
Thank
all so
you.
much.
Bye.